for all the folks that missed out. So if you're new here, welcome to San Diego User Group. We meet the third Thursday of every month, so please come back. I am Christy Brown. I'm the user group leader, and my co-leader, Tracy Hart, is sick, so she won't be joining us today. So everybody pout for Tracy, but we'll catch her next month for sure. And we have a special guest today, Jean from Salesforce, and we're going to be talking about Trailhead and certifications and answering all your questions. So hopefully you guys brought good questions with you. And I think, Jean, you'll just like go through your spiel and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Let's do it.
For sure. All right. Let me share my screen. So I brought a quick presentation that I did at TDX this year. So that is the beautiful, hopefully, are you seeing my presentation?
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. So we talked about my favorite subject, study tips to get you credential ready. And I say credential ready because we're not just talking about exams, and we'll go through that here in a minute. But first of all, just wanted to say a big shout out to Christy and all of our Trailblazers out there, all of you included in that. I literally wouldn't have the job that I have without all of you. So thank you for all that you do out in the ecosystem. And just know that everything that I do is all for you. Sounds like a song, I know. Forward-looking statement, don't make your purchasing decisions based on the things that I say. Just throwing that out there. All right, so who am I? I'm this crazy lady with purple hair in a hotel room at Midwest Streaming. I am a technical program manager at Salesforce. I've been here for 3.5 years. I have 6 certifications all listed there on the right-hand side, maybe your left, my right. And what I do is I manage all of the credential solutions on Trailhead. So you think your certification maintenance modules, your certification trail mixes, your study prep resources, and then credential ambassadors, which are subject matter experts, people like yourself, like Christy out in the ecosystem, all the wonderful things about Salesforce and how they work, and they help us write our exam material and all of that other fun stuff. So I get a
Can I interrupt you for a minute? That's like a lot of things that you do.
It is a lot of things. And it's a new role. I kind of convinced the credential team that they needed to give me all of the fun technical stuff that wasn't super badges.
Love it.
And I love my subject matter experts. They're like my family. So yeah, it's all the fun stuff that nobody else wants to do that I like.
Love it.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about? My session goals for you are to figure out where to start with a credential. So we get this question all the time. Where do I begin? Let's talk about those super badges because they're super awesome. Let's talk about certifications and how to really focus your study for those. And then how do you ace that exam? So again, I'm going to start, where do I begin? Well, Cody and Astro have an amazing map for us, and we are going to talk about not only our super sets and our super badges, but our credentials as well. So Salesforce currently offers 2 types of credentials, your super badges and super sets, and then certifications. And together we have about over 50 credentials. That includes exams that are proctored plus your superset badges as well. And they help you boost your resume and prove your capabilities, not only from a testing knowledge, but a hands-on knowledge. And then you can accelerate your career with those. Our supersets are also provide the opportunities to read about the different careers because they are domain and role based. And they give you pre-work. So we're going to teach you how to do the things before we actually are testing you on it. And I'll talk more in depth about those here in a minute. But super badges, when they first came out, I was like, holy moly, this sounds really, really hard to do. And I'm never going to do a super badge. I have almost all the super badges on the admin side now, and they're not scary. And let's talk about how to make them not scary, right? So, what I said before earlier is that they are going to prep you before it unlocks the super badge. So, super badge prep comes in this nice little package. To unlock a super badge, you're guided through modules of badges that are going to teach you the skills that we're going to test you in the super badge. So, we're already prepping you. And maybe you're like, well, I've unlocked badge now, but I don't feel like I'm ready for it. Go do the pre-work again. And just until you get comfortable with it and you feel like you know what you're doing, read some of the resource links that are in those badges, and that'll really help you get prepped to get into this super badge. And then, we talk about how super badges are hands on, right? So we're not going to give you the answer. We're not going to give you step-by-step instructions in the challenge of how to do it. This is actually a test of your hands-on skills and your knowledge, so that you can get through the super badge. So I put some tips in here of how to get ready. And my number one tip is to read carefully. I have a second screen up here, or I'll have my iPad up, and then I'll have my org in front of me so that I can go and read through what the scenario is asking, read through what the challenge is asking me, and then I can build it in my org as I go. And I check early and often because you don't lose points for checking your challenge more than one time. So keep that in mind. Eventually you are going to figure out the right check for that challenge so that you can move forward. And then we get a lot of questions about how to get unstuck. And our credential team has done a great job most recently, helping to write some knowledge articles out there that are attached to each super badge. And I'm completely distracted by your cat, Christy. She's so cute. But go into those super badges. Our knowledge articles are in there that are going to give you tips of how to get yourself unstuck. There's always additional resources, which in that prep work and in the super badge, there's links to help articles in Salesforce Help. And then my biggest thing is reports and dashboards are my jam. And that super badge gave me a real run for my money. So I would do it in sections. On Wednesdays and Fridays, after I've got all my work done, I would set aside an hour after work or the last hour of my workday to work on the super badge. And I'd take it in chunks. I'd just do one challenge at a time, and then I would walk away. And if I got really stuck, I'd just be like, you know what, that's enough for today. I'm going to come back at a later date and try again. And you know what? I'm going to be super transparent. Sometimes we do have bugs in super badges. As you know, Salesforce puts out those releases 3 times a year. Our super badge testing team does a really good job of trying to prevent things from getting messed up by release. We test every release before they go live. And, sometimes some things happen. So if you do get stuck and you really feel like, oh, this is probably a problem on the Trailhead Playground, or maybe this feature doesn't work the way that it did before release, you can log a case on Trailhead. I also like to go out and talk to my fellow Trailblazers and be like, hey, I'm stuck here. I don't want you to give me the answer, but can you give me some things to think about of maybe what's something I'm missing? So, just try and pay attention to not Googling and going out there and finding the answer and then doing it, because that doesn't really help you learn the hands-on information. Um, but think about how you can get unstuck. What are the skills that we taught you before you tried the super badge, and move from there. Christy, questions, comments?
So I added a comment that said when I'm doing interviews, I check for super badges these days because I think that they're so important. They really demonstrate. And so then we had some people asking, well, which ones do you like to see when you're interviewing? And so
Yeah.
now we're just talking about like the admin superset, and Brendan has recently started the process automation specialist one, which is really great. Um, and Mark mentioned that he did the process automation one last year too. When you were talking
Yeah.
about the getting unstuck, I'm like totally opposite when I do my super badges. Like I have to sit down and I have to do the whole thing. Otherwise, if I come back, I like forget what I was doing because, I have so many other projects going on too that I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I didn't even know what this was about. What? And then I feel like I need to start over. So,
Yes. Yes, I feel that too. If there's one that I'm like, you know what, I just want to get through it, I'll do like a Salesforce Saturday and I'll just sit and do the super badge that day so that
yeah,
I don't lose focus on it. Yeah.
yeah.
That kind of brings us into our next slide. So there are two brand new super badges out. Lightning Implementation Specialist came out at TDX. Woo-hoo. And then User Authentication Specialist Super Badge came out like literally last week or this week. I can't even keep my days straight. Somebody told me today was Thursday, and I was like, okay. So this is kind of leads into that conversation, Christy, that the Lightning implementation specialist is our normal large, mega points, sit down, maybe chunk it out for yourself. But this user authentication one is a little bit different. So if you go, and I can put a link in here for you if you all want to see it, but you can go out and it's 3 super badges that each one should take you about an hour, and it steps you through a skill for that super badge. And at the end of doing the third one, you can take a capstone, which is quiz questions. So we're getting you not only one badge for a super badge, 3 super badges, and a capstone, which will end up, don't quote me on this, safe harbor, it's supposed to end up showing in your certification as a credential. That's pretty cool. Brand new, came out this week or last week. So
That's amazing. I hadn't heard that yet, and that's a really cool like process to walk through to earn that.
yeah, it's really neat. I haven't been able to take it because I was on PTO last week, and then I'm here in Minneapolis this week. But I look forward to trying to bust that one out in a couple weekends here. So be exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about the big question. How do I focus my study, right? I don't think I told you guys this in the beginning, but I'm a very anxious person and I get test anxiety really bad. So I've had to figure out ways. Yeah, Chrissy says her too. I've had to figure out ways to tone that down and calm myself down when I go to take a test or even when I'm prepping for it. So the best thing that Cody has here for us is a map, right? Where do I begin? Well, besides figuring out what exam you want to take, that's a whole nother presentation. When you decide which exam you want to take, the best place to start is with the map, and that's your exam guide. All the exam guides are on the credential tab. You can go click there, click on the exam that you want to take a look at, and read the exam outline. That is going to tell you a lot of important stuff. It's going to tell you what the pass rate is. Are there any prereqs, right? Do I have to have anything before I take this test? For admin, no. For advanced admin, yes, you have to have admin. It's going to tell you how many sections and what the weighting is for each of those sections. And why that's important is because, and not that I'm saying the lower rated or the lower percentages aren't as important, but there's going to be more questions in the heavier weighted sections. So for configuration and setup, I'm going to make sure I know all the ins and outs of configuration and setup because I'm going to get a lot of questions on those. And then underneath, you can open up those little, I don't know, arrows, I think they're called, and look at what I call objectives. So you want to look and see what is this section and what are we talking about, right? For configuration and setup, are we talking about flow? No. Configuration and setup is talking about user setup, user management, where are your company information settings and things like that. And then when you get down to workflow and process automation, you're going to talk about flow. There's still workflow in there for admin. Until they deprecate that, we still have to test on it to make sure you know what's out there. But yeah, just make sure you're reading through each one of those sections so that you really understand how much do I need to know, what are the keywords and key topics and things like that I need to know to get through that. And then your help resources. You've got a great one right here. Christy, like myself, has many certifications and super badges. So your community groups are your best place to go and meet people, whether it's virtually, in person. All the Trailblazers are here, whether you're new to the community or an OG like myself. This is the best place to meet people. This week I'm in Minneapolis at Midwest Dreaming. It's their community event. I think you have Tahoe Dreaming out there by you, Christy, and probably some other ones that I
A
can't think
couple
about
weeks.
right now. Yeah, so going to these events and your user group and community groups are huge because you meet so many different people. I'm pretty sure I met Christy at a user group or an event somewhere. And that's your study buddy. You find somebody just like you who is working on the same credential that you're working on, and you can motivate each other, talk through difficult processes or things that maybe you're just not understanding. I've shared flashcards with people before. So, great places to start is your community groups. Um, Near and dear to my heart are your cert prep trail mixes and your study prep modules or your cert prep modules. These are the things that I write for all of you. And they are just like my little babies that I can see out in the world, helping you to learn all the things you need to know to pass that certification or super badge. So, cert prep trail mixes, it's going to be a lot of badges and modules and sometimes some help articles to read through to really understand topics and get hands on so you really understand it. Um, that is the best way I know how to get ready for a certification. Reading I can do, but if I get hands on and make lots of mistakes and mess up a playground, that's the best way I'm going to learn how to do these things. And then the cert prep or study prep modules are really nice because it's going to tell you and go through each section of the exam and really get into what is this section about. And they have really cool quiz questions that are interactive, and it's going to tell you why you answered right or wrong. And then there's a references at the end. And then they also have flashcards that you can study for yourself. There is a quiz at the bottom, so it's going to ask you like, is there a prereq for this exam, right? What percentage is the highest percent on the exam, to really hone you in when you're studying to make sure that you're paying attention to these things and that you're prepared when you go into Web Assessor to take your exam. Christy, questions, comments?
I would just like to say that I love the links out to documentation in the trail mixes because sometimes the trailhead modules are just like too broad. Like sometimes you just need documentation, and it's amazing just to have them all there in one place. Something I discovered
Yeah.
recently too, I was going back through some of the like beginner Apex modules when I was studying for my Developer 1 certification. And I noticed that they all have videos now. I think it's called like Trail Together, where it's like someone walking through actually doing those modules and it's all recorded and then you can do it together in a video. They were amazing.
I didn't know that. I'm going to have to revisit that. That's
Also,
really cool.
I'll send you an example. I saw it on like maybe 5 or 6 different ones I clicked into. It was super helpful. I think they're probably recordings of
That
like
is super
Trailhead
helpful.
Live, but they're like embedded on the modules now, and I thought it was really cool. Before we get
That's so smart.
too much farther, there was a question about that user authentication specialist one. Just a clarification on where it's listed as an actual credential. Is that on just like your trailblazer.me profile or
It's
no?
coming.
Okay,
Yeah, so Safe Harbor, it's coming. They are revamping that page a little bit. So it should be towards the end of August.
nice.
Yeah.
And then we've got lots of chatter, just people studying for tests and stuff. Um, and Caitlin is awesome. Oh, and she's Mark's teammate. Is that who's in all of those videos that I liked watching? I agree that she's awesome then.
Very nice. No, videos are my friend because I have an easier time listening and doing than I do reading. So if I'm going to need more like you, I'll go to those links and I'll read more up on Salesforce help. Cool. And then one more thing that I don't know why I almost forgot about this, but there is practice tests. So one of the things that I worked on last year was to bring the admin practice test into Trailhead. So you can go in there and you can take it as many times as you want to. It's a bank of like 180 items. You get 30 at a time. So you can go in there and practice on Trailhead instead of paying the $20 in WebAssessor. You can still go do WebAssessor. That gives you a good idea of how you are going to feel when you go to test, either online or in a testing center. But that way on Trailhead, you can do it as many times as you want, get a good feel for the content.
Are the practice tests on Trailhead only for the admin cert, or are there multiple?
So far, just for the admin cert.
Nice.
But WebAssessor does have, I feel like WebAssessor has 3 or 4 practice tests in there.
Nice. Jamie asks, where is this in the Trailhead? And are you talking about the videos that we were talking about, or something else, or the practice tests?
The
The
practice
test.
test is on Trailhead, and I think, yep, the practice test is on Trailhead. Yep. If you go to the admin overview page, it's there. There's 3 widgets. One's the trail mix, one is the cert prep module, and then it's the interactive practice test. All right. So I told you I get really anxious. Chrissy says she gets anxious too. So let's talk about how do we prepare ourselves to go in and take that test. So I've developed some testing strategies for myself, regardless if you're in person at a testing center or online. There's a couple of things that you can do for yourself and keep in mind. Your test time doesn't start until you click the start button. And I'll tell you why that's important. I have to take a minute and like center myself. If you could see me, I have like my legs crossed on my chair. I'll put my hands, I'll sit up straight, and I'll just take like a couple deep breaths. It's like box breathing, right? You're just trying to calm your mind and ease your body, because otherwise I would just sit here like this the whole time. So just take a second and really center yourself before you even hit the start button to go, so that you aren't rushing through. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because if you're rushing through, you're not going to read the item all the way. And that's key to really, I read the item, right? And then I read all the answers. And then I go back up and read the item again, because now I know what's below and how can I match and think about, okay, what are they asking me? Who, what way, and how does this work? So that's really important for you to be able to break down the question, think about what they're asking you, read the whole thing so that you don't go, oh, I know, and just guess. Um, and that'll help you manage your time, right? So if you're not feeling panicked and you're not speeding through, you're going to time management yourself really well. I use all of the time that they give me, and I track my progress. So within WebAssessor, you can mark things for review, and that's big because then I don't have to go through every item. I mark ones that I've guessed on to review. And if it's, they're changing a lot of this stuff. So some of the exams are 3 answer options. And as they refresh things, that's going to be the norm now. So no more pick 2, pick 3. It's going to be 3 answer options, pick 1 and move on. So that's really going to help with time management. We've already seen a vast improvement. But tracking your progress is very important. Just hit that review button. And then at the end, you can go back through and use all of your time to go back and review the ones that you guessed on. In person is my favorite way to test, but because of COVID, obviously we've all had to switch to a little bit different way of testing. When you go in person, I love in-person testing because they give you scratch paper. And I can sit there before my test starts and I can put down things that I don't want to forget. There's some mantras that I remember for myself for certain tests that like, the order of execution, right? I don't keep that in my brain. I memorize it before I go into test, and I scribble that down on the paper really quick. Or there's key things about flow that I want to remember, that this is how flow works, and I'll write those down on the piece of paper when I'm in person. I also use one of the pieces of paper to number from 1 to 65, because we give you 5 questions extra that we're testing. That's how we keep our test items fresh. And I'll go through and track myself. If I know it, I just cross it off. If I don't know it, I circle it to tell myself I guessed. And the two guesses that I'm thinking about that I can't pick between, is it A or B, or is it D and C? And then I just move on. So that way, even though I've marked it for a review, I know what my guess was, so that I can come back through. Or sometimes I'm like, I don't know what this word means. I took field service lightning and they were talking about a polygon something. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I'll come back and think about it later. That's in person testing for me. I also go at a very convenient time for myself. So I will test on Fridays. And I'll do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that I have some time in the morning to just review. I'm not going to learn anything new in that morning, but at least I can just go through my flashcards and prep myself, like, to go into the testing center. I drive myself a little bit early, sit down in the lobby, have a drink of water, and then go take my test. I've also been known to go with a study buddy or two, that we all go and test at the same time. Even though we may not be taking the same test, at least I have somebody to celebrate with afterwards. Online, really it is prepping to take that test online, right? Read the instructions, make sure you do your biometrics, consider your environment, make sure wherever you are is clean. You have nothing on your desk or table that you're at. Run a speed test or hardline plug in. I don't test on Wi-Fi. I hardline with an Ethernet into my router so that I have a good speed working. And then make sure that you lock yourself in wherever you're going. I've had a cat walk through behind me before, and they'll stop your test because there's movement in the room. So really think about where you are and set yourself up to be successful so that they don't have to stop your test and interrupt you, because that will throw my mojo off big time. So just really be cognizant of that. And then what comes after my exam? You get your section level feedback. I always review that, whether I pass or fail, because I want to know how well I did in each section. And do I need to go back and say, something was 20%, and yeah, I passed that section, but maybe not as high as I thought I would. I got like a 70, and that means I probably need to go learn some more. And then celebrate. That's my favorite thing to do. It I got in trouble at a testing center when I passed my PD1. I just went, whoa, and I started crying at the desk. And the proctor had to come over and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yes, I passed. I'm just like so happy. And he's like, can you step outside? You're bothering people. So just really be cognizant if you're in a testing center, to not disrupt other people. And when you get out, you'll have somebody there if you went with a study buddy to give a big hug. And I like to treat myself to sushi when I pass a certification, but I also treat myself if I don't pass, just the fact that I went and did the test. I'll get my favorite ice cream or something like that. Christy, how do you celebrate?
I walk around to every member of my family and went, I did it, like that, and then I don't know, ice cream or
Yeah,
something. I just like saying it out loud. It feels good.
yeah. And shout out from the rooftops. If you're on social, hit it up on Twitter and LinkedIn and all of it. Just like shout it out from the rooftops. Even if it's, a celebrate because I went and took the test, there are a ton of people out in the ecosystem that have your back. I have not passed a test many times. In fact, I think the only one that I ever passed on the first try was Sales Cloud. And that's because I had been doing it for 15 years and just really knew it. So, you know what? A fail is not a failure, it's a learned opportunity.
I love how appreciative people are when you do post that you have failed and like post what you learned by that. And I feel like there's a lot of posts like, oh, I got 5 certs in 5 days or whatever. And so having someone post that, yeah, people do fail these kind of manages your expectations, and I like it.
Yeah, I love it too. I do know people that have gone and got 5 certifications in a week. They have been in the ecosystem a very long time and just never put forth the effort to get their certs. And I also know people like myself that can't pass the test on the first try to save their life. And it's just, it is what it is. Adult learning and testing is hard.
Totally.
When's the last time you took a test? It would have been high school for me. So go easy on yourself. So this is my all-time favorite slide and my secret sauce. This is actually a question that we have out on the admin practice exam. So it is on Trailhead. It's something that came from as we weed out different questions that have a high pass rate. So at one point, this was a real live exam question. It is not now. But I like to use this as a use case to think about, read through and think, who is the question talking about? Who or what are they asking? Is there an action, right? And then where is this action taking place? And how is this action being administered? Because some of the questions are about how users should do things, and some of the questions are about what an admin should be doing, or a developer, or a consultant. So you really, that who, what, why, where applies here, and just taking your time to think through the item and really understand what they're asking. And it's a pick two, right? So I've got to figure out what two of these do not belong. And that's how I go about it. If I know it, I know the answer, I'll pick it. But if I'm guessing, I'll be like, which ones don't belong? And I can kind of troubleshoot it that way. And it's really like how you would admin things, right, Christy? So when you go into an org, you're like, something's not right here, what doesn't belong, and then go from there. Same thing with taking a test. You're just admitting the test and figuring out what things don't belong, or I know this is the right answer. So what we covered here today is we hit those session goals, right? We figured out where we begin, talked about all the resources for not only super badges, and we figured out how to focus in on our studying and not be anxious test takers so that we can ace the exam. So hopefully this was helpful to you all. And again, thank you for everything that you all do, especially Chrissy for having me.
Yay.
That's all I got. Hit me with your best questions.
That was wonderful. So one question that's still in the chat from Van is, are they updating the admin exam at the end of August? And if so, are they big changes when they update the exams?
So they being me, before I took on my new role, I refreshed the entire admin exam during the pandemic. I had started refreshing admin right when the pandemic hit. We started with Platform App Builder, then we did admin and advanced admin. So those have all been recently refreshed. However, our cycle of refreshing exams has become shorter. It used to be every 3 years, but because of stuff is rapid changing and we've released a couple of new exams like business analysis, they do look at admin, advanced admin, and platform app builder and figure out, are there things that we need to move or adjust? They also look at the entire item bank every release and make sure that our questions are still valid. And they will sprinkle in new questions. So flow's the future, right? So you're going to start seeing more flow, less process builder. With that said, don't get in a panic if you're set up to take your admin exam soon. We don't change things that fast. We're probably a cycle behind each release. So take that into consideration. And when you go sign up to take your exam, it's going to tell you what form release it's on. So it'll say summer, winter, spring. So you can kind of pay attention to that and figure out from there. But really, I mean, Salesforce admin has always been the base. So really just keep that in mind. The base of Salesforce platform really hasn't changed. It's still opportunity, account, lightning, all of that good stuff, right? Your automation. So just think about that stuff too, right? And I won't say what I was going to say because I don't want to scare anybody. They're never going to change accounts, contacts, opportunities. Like that's the
Standard
bread and butter of
objects.
Salesforce. So standard objects out of the box, it's always going to be there.
So Jade, who seems to be in your Pathfinder program, wants to know, does our Pathfinder Learning utilize your new modules or the older stuff? Does that make sense to you?
Um, it should be the same. When we release new stuff, we also work with the Caseys and the Pathfinder program to integrate that stuff. So, and I think I know what Jade's talking about. We still talk about some of the classic if it is an old classic feature that never came into Lightning and we're still testing on it, they will discuss that. You will go into some orgs, like once you get out of Pathfinder, you could go into an org that's still in classic and not in Lightning, which like just hurts my soul,
Right?
but it's the reality and the nature of the business.
I was on a call
But
with
for the exam,
Sorry, I was on a call with
yeah, go ahead.
another partner the other day. They were demoing something and they were demoing it in Classic, and I was like, "What are you doing?" It made my soul hurt.
Yeah, I mean, wait, so probably 8 years ago, I started a new job and they were like, we love Salesforce. It's the best thing ever. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, show me your org. And while I was in the interview, they logged in and it was classic. And I was like, okay, when I come on board, if I take this job, we can't be in classic. We're gonna have to, and that'll be my first thing to come in and do. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. It
Nice.
took me a year and a half to get them into Lightning because we just did groups of people. And it ended up being wonderful and fantastic. But yeah, classic. And then there's the old school classic, which Mark probably has seen and probably Mark Baseman's seen. Calling you out, boys. The super old classic. Contacts was like a mustard yellow.
So
Yeah.
gross.
Oh yeah. Aloha UI. There you go. See, I knew he'd know what it was called.
So Angela has a question. Is it true that we have a white page to create notes when taking the exam online? And I
Hmm.
know that that is false.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard from other testing sources that Criterion does have that option. But we do not, as a Salesforce, through Criterion, we do not. I know, I think on one of the platform PD1, they opened up the comments box so that you could give feedback on code and questions. So I know that she's kind of piloting that to see how that goes. But yes, I have asked for a whiteboard to test because that would make it a lot easier for me to test
Awesome.
online.
I noticed with the business analyst one that just released, they have the comment boxes after every question as well.
They do. And kind of behind the curtain, when we released an exam, we put it out as an ANGOF form. It's a technical term to go out there. And once we get 100 to 200 testers, we start looking at the analytics in the background and see how the forms are testing. And we'll keep going through that process until we get about 500 people testing. And then they'll shift out of that ANGOF process and then they'll go full blown, push it out until the next release. So it's I like the comment box. It helps. It's super fun as an exam developer to read all the comments that you all give us.
I bet.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
good.
Brendan wants to know if you know what percentage of Trailblazers reach Ranger status.
Oh.
I do not
I'm
know.
sure it's out there somewhere, but not off the top of my head. And with the new public ranger stars, I'm really excited to see like when that goes live, how many people are already at like all star. Did you hear about that at TDX?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
super
it's so cool.
excited. I
Yeah.
was just looking at Trailhead before we started, and I'm 4 modules away from hitting 800. So I feel like I have to do it today or something because now it's just going to bother me.
When you get that close, like you just can't help yourself.
Yeah. Like, where are all the quiz only ones?
I
Shaylee,
have been known to do that.
I do the quiz onlys when I'm like laying in bed and can't sleep at night because what else am I going to do? It's either that or BuzzFeed
Hey,
quizzes, right?
well, Trailhead Go on your phone. Just, you're sitting in the doctor's office and you just do a quick quiz.
It's the best. Shaylee wants to know, when does the Pathfinder program take new students?
That is a good question. I know that we're probably about halfway through our cohort right now. Pathfinder, let me see. I will find the website and maybe we can put it in the chat here. If you Google Salesforce Pathfinder, it's going to tell you, and it may not open up right away.
Okay, we'll find it, Shaylee.
Yes, I will find, here it is. I think you can sign up for reminders. So here is the website
Nice.
for Pathfinder. I love this program. I meet so many different people from so many walks of life. And I say this about everything within the Salesforce ecosystem between Trailhead, the Trailblazer community, Pathfinder, internships. Y'all got some gold out there and a huge opportunity to get into the ecosystem with a vast support system. And I know I sound like that, old lady that says, I had to walk uphill both ways to school. Help and training was this like tiny little link in my org that took you out to like a weird Reddit thing. And at that time, I didn't even know what I was looking at half the time. But now that they have all these programs, y'all are just so fortunate to have this. And when Trailhead came out, I was like, yes, now there's somewhere I can go and get hands-on and it's free. It was huge.
Amazing. So I have a question.
Yes.
I already mentioned I lay in bed at night doing Trailhead badges using the app. But
Yeah.
there are like so many resources, these classes, there's Trailhead, there's community user groups, there's community conferences, there's like all these things. How do you balance like how much Salesforce is in your life? I guess. What do you
Mm,
choose to do? Because like Salesforce is, I think this is something Tracy said to me once, like Salesforce can't be your job and your hobby. And of course it is for both of us. So like how
lies.
how do you balance so that you're just like not always learning Salesforce, but you're still like
Yeah.
moving up the ladder and doing cool stuff?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that this last 2, 3 years has taught me, it's not necessarily about balance, it's about setting boundaries. And taking stock of where you're at and checking in with yourself on a regular basis. Because when I started working at Salesforce, I was like so excited. I remember talking to somebody else that worked at Salesforce, and they're like, "You'll settle down. You'll settle down, and you'll find your groove and your niche." And I signed up for all the things because I was like, I have all this time. I'm not, I can't participate in the community like I used to, so I got to find all these other things. And she was right. It was the best advice she gave me, right? Find the things that you're passionate about, which education and learning were the things that I was passionate about. So I was doing my dream job and getting to help Trailblazers out in the community. So that already took some of the pressure that of all the things that I was doing out in the community before. And I actually went through a spell because I had to give up my MVP. I had to give up working with the witness success ladies. And I kind of went through this like withdrawal of trying to find a replacement for that. And then just wasn't one, right? But once I started getting involved with Pathfinder, and that kind of gave me like my outside niche to still talk about all the wonderful things that Salesforce can do. That gave me a little bit of balance because it's Thursday nights, and that's my Thursday night thing. I still do badges so that I can learn new things, but I don't do them with the amount of rigor I did before because I need to know bits and pieces of things for my job, especially doing the certification prep. I just need to kind of know high level how this works, and then I work with a subject matter expert to do that piece of it. And then I pick a dream and event that, really piques my interest. Witness Success is my favorite one because I used to help with it, and it's all my ladies. So I really pick one each year that I'm like, that's the one I'm going to go to and participate in. I love speaking. Things like this are super fun for me. And being able to submit to speak at a dream and event is fun too. And if I don't get picked, that's fine too. I get to go and learn all the things that you all out there in the ecosystem were talking about. And then internally, they give us volunteer time. So I get 56 hours of Salesforce time to volunteer, and I max that out. Yes, I get volunteer hours for Pathfinder, but I also found a couple of groups that during the pandemic, there was a company called Be the Bridge, and they educate um, businesses on Black Lives Matter, dark, brown, black people, and how we should be learning and teaching and bringing in. And it just really spoke to me. My coworker, Julie Workman, also, she actually found them and started to work with them, and they're a nonprofit. And she brought in Salesforce Anywhere so they could see where all their donations were coming from. And she's like, they really need some help with just their base Salesforce. So I went in and set all their sandboxes up. I helped them put together a marketing campaign so that they could send automated messages and things out to all of their donors to remind them of donor deadlines and things like that. So it was a really cool way to give back, and it just really spoke to my heart. And they could talk about Trail Heart. Like, I don't know if you can see my shirt. It's a happy heart. Um, that's how I balance. If you say balance, I find the things that really speak to my heart and make me feel good, because then it's not work. I like doing these things, and they're the things that like give me, just remind me of grace and keep me down to earth, keep me checked and balanced. And yeah, you just have to make the time for the things that, and it's okay to try something and be like, you know what, this isn't for me, and gracefully step aside.
I love everything you just said. I'm gonna fangirl over you for a while now.
Same goes back to you, Christy. I remember the first time, I think you had your like a hat on or something the first time I met you, and I'm like, she's got a ranger hat. Yeah. So same.
Um, so Van wants to know, how is MVP status achieved and maintained? But then Mark posted a link about it also.
Yeah. Mark is a great source of information, and that blog will tell you anything and everything you need to know about the MVPs out there. It's a whole process out in the community. You get nominated by the community for the community votes on it. The other MVPs who are already in the program vote on it. They've done a lot of changes over the last year of how the program works. You know, they have a Hall of Fame. So after 5 years, you go into the Hall of Fame. Fun fact, if you ever want a quiz question, how long was Jean an MVP before she joined Salesforce? 8 months.
Aww.
I made it through 8 months, and I had to think really long and hard if I could. I had a long conversation with the community team. They're like, "You really want to give it up?" And I'm like, "No," but I also knew that this job was the job for me. It was written in the stars. It just happened. It wasn't just, you know, and there's a lot of important jobs at Salesforce, but I knew that I didn't want to be an SE or an AE or anything like that. I knew I wanted to be in the credential space, and it just serendipitously opened up and ended up working. Yep, long-term choice. Mark and I had this conversation. So going to the mothership, don't just do it to get in, find the right fit, just like any other job. Find the right fit for who you are.
Nice. That makes me so sad also, but I'm so happy that you joined. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask? Oh, Mark just posted a whole big long thing about MVPs again. Okay. Any other questions?
True.
Mark is leaving. Bye, Mark. Was happy to see you, but not see you.
You can always hit me up on Twitter. Yeah. My
All
Twitter's
right.
super easy. It's at Jean Velonis.
Oh, we have a question. Any advice for figuring out what to tackle after admin?
That's the second most popular question. I would say take a hard look at what skills you already have, right? What skills do you already have? What are you interested in? And align those with the exams that are out there. So if you're an admin and you have BA skills, BA. If you're an admin and you have Sales Cloud skills, Sales Cloud. So that's really how I figured out my certification path. Right before I started at Salesforce, I was going to hit that architect path hard. I took PD1 3 times, finally passed it on the third try. That's when I cried. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one. And that's when I knew I was not a developer, but I could be an architect. So I was gonna go hit up the architect triangle and started that, and I don't need it now. So, but if and when I ever leave the mothership, that might be the path that I would go. So just really take stock of your skills. Oh, app builder is a good one too. Yeah, just taking a good stock of your skill set that you have.
Love that. Well, it seems like everyone is going back to work. Sad. So we'll call it here. Jean, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And I will be posting the recording on the event page in a couple hours here whenever it's ready. So thanks,
Awesome sauce.
everybody.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.